So now we're going to talk about globalization. What is globalization? Globalization is basically these networks that span all domains: the political side, the social side, the military side, the scientific side, the environmental side. Right? So they span all these different domains internationally, and it kind of results in certain international norms or standards that countries all over the world, or countries and people all over the world, start adhering to, whether they notice or not, and whether they like it or not. Let me give a few examples. I mean, some really obvious ones. Thinking about economic globalization. And you can go almost anywhere in the world now and swipe your credit card and it'll take it straight out of your bank. You can go to currency exchange bureaus almost anywhere in the world and change your dollars or pounds or whatever to whatever the local currency is. Okay. Think about the political side. Well, there are individuals from all sorts of political parties that are exchanging ideas, like through the UN or through NATO. And we also see that democracy is an ideal that has slowly but surely spread over most of the developed countries. On the social side, go to any country in the world and you will find people wearing jeans and t-shirts, almost kind of this American fashion trend. Yet they may not like Americans and they may not like the fact that they're wearing jeans and t-shirts, but they do anyhow. And so we see kind of a fashion trend. On the military side, well, I certainly think about my own experience in the Army, where we had foreign students in our officer training courses taking the same classes we did, learning our ways of doing things and taking those things back to their own militaries when they went home. On the scientific side, well, what do you think professors do during the summer? They're not just chilling out, they're either recording course videos like I'm doing today, or they're going to international conferences and presenting their research. And so when I go to the different conferences that I attend, and particularly in Europe, there are people from all over the world there, and we're all exchanging ideas, and we all kind of start to develop in the same sort of way. And of course, environmental interdependence is also important. Think of the Paris Accord and the Paris Agreement. Now there are kind of 8 different sources of globalization, even though trade is probably the most important one, but we'll talk about that shortly. Of course, the first one are just general ideas that have been spreading. You know, there's a lot of these ideas that have more or less become, if not internationally accepted, at least internationally understood. Ideas like capitalism, democracy, the need to protect the environment, consumer protection, human rights, corporate social responsibility. Various religions have spread internationally. Of course, capital. Okay. Think of things like we talked about already: foreign direct investment, trade, currency speculation, and then of course, as I mentioned, also sovereign wealth funds. This is a good example of how capital has contributed to globalization. There's labor. We've seen that in developed countries, developed countries, there is a downward pressure on wages. There's been job losses due to outsourcing to developing countries. And in developing nations, rising wages have kind of been something that's been occurring over time, but of course workers are also being exploited. We have MNCs, which I've talked about a little bit already. Multinational corporations, of course, are increasing in size and transnationality. There have been international production chains. There's been a tremendous amount of wealth creation due to multinational corporations. And of course, multinationals have also been a source of pollution, resource depletion, and human rights violations. Got governments. Of course, with governments, capital markets and multinational corporations have largely worked to erode national sovereignties and the importance of borders. There has been a lot of pressure for trade liberalization, so lowering trade barriers, and there has also been pressure to increase social welfare for citizens all over the world. We've got technology. Of course, transportation has been important for globalization. So it's communications networks that have increased. When you think about Skype and Google Chat, you can talk to people all over the world. There's also been innovation in biotechnology, nanotechnology, other fields that has brought scientists together from all over the world. We have civil society. So in civil society, there have been environmental, human rights, labor, religious movements, healthcare, and animal rights, non-governmental organizations. Okay, so they are promoting these international norms, perhaps with the support of or in spite of national governments. There's also been civil regulation. And of course, there have been a variety of international organizations that have promoted globalization. The World Trade Organization, regional trade agreements, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the United Nations. And ideally, all of these things are kind of working together to help promote the fulfillment of human potential, ideally, right? And this would be things like increasing life expectancy, increasing education internationally, increasing the material welfare of people all over the world, achieving political and economic equality, and of course, protecting the environment. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the pros and cons of globalization in the next video, but this kind of gives you a broad overview. Looking forward to seeing you then.